GIS, Geographic Information Systems presentation by staff. So if you would, please proceed.
And Mr. Chairman, too, I need to leave just a little bit before 11, just to let you know.
Okay, thanks for the heads up, appreciate it. And for the benefit of everybody else, I'm going to do everything I can to get us out of here by noon. So, thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, yes, we have, if you're ready to move forward with that, we do have our GIS department here to kind of give us a little bit of an overview on their mapping system and how it relates to our zoning process and how that's going to relate to us planning and moving forward with the comprehensive plan. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Brandon over here, and he can kind of jump in and talk about the GIS side and how that relates to us, and then Jessica also can make a presentation as well.
Good morning. As Jeremy said, I'm Brandon with the Yavapai County GIS, and I'm just going to go through a couple applications that we've been working with Development Services on for the comp plan. So what is GIS? GIS is a geographical information system that allows computer mapping of different areas, and a good representation is that spatial intelligence or location intelligence. You can put almost anything and relate it to a map, so it's good to be able to look at all that information as a global package, kind of develop a pattern per se. So this is the MLD analysis. So what we basically did is took all the permit data from 2018 to 2021, and there's a process of the minor land divisions where it is a portion of land that's 5 or fewer lots and less than 10 acres is required to get a permit through Development Services. It goes through the planning and zoning process. Running the analysis, joining up all the parcels to existing parcels, and we were able to generate a dashboard that wants me to log in. So we did this to kind of get an overview of where the areas are growing so that we can try and equate this to the future as areas that we want to look at transportation growth, stuff like that. As you can see, we did a total of 3.7 thousand parcels have been created since 2018 through this process. Majority of them are in District 4, the next being District 2. So you can see that you're getting a lot of growth in the Prescot area. You can see my mouse there, yep. So in 2018, we did 1.2 thousand. In 2019, we dropped down to 555. 2020, 759, and now we're back up to 1.2 thousand. So as you zoom in here, you can kind of see the areas that are growing. Of course, this is only unincorporated areas. We don't keep track of the growth in incorporated areas. That's their jurisdiction. So this is just like, again, one way just to kind of spatialize that data and get an idea of what's going on. So we also put together some Survey 123 applications to ask questions to the public about what is important to them. And this was part of that initial comprehensive plan survey. And we put them together as a map showing everything in a dashboard style. This is publicly available for everyone to look at. They asked about dark skies, you know, how important is that to you? Various other questions and stuff, and how people answered. So again, giving spatial intelligence to questions even, and where we should be looking at growing our planning. I'm just giving a broad overview of this application. I'm not really covering everything in here. I encourage you guys to go look at it yourselves. Again, this is on the main website. So this is an internal application that we built that is going to allow us to classify areas and what we want to encourage growth in, whether it be agricultural, commercial, industrial, or open space, or various different sizes of residential, from rural ranch to, quarter-acre lots. So the gray areas are areas that are government, typically national forest, stuff like that, that we wouldn't be making comments on. But we can kind of zoom into these areas and see what we're currently at. These red lines here are actually analysis of 200-foot buffers for trying to encourage commercial growth along those main intersections there, like gas stations or something of that nature. And then if we already have the current zoning, that's what all these little pad things are telling you, it's planned area development. And then this is real estate. In here, we can actually draw in templates and say, hey, I think we should make this area right here commercial because it meets a lot of our commercial requirements. Giving our planners an edge in where we can develop, where we can't, and what we want to change to. So I guess I can open up to any questions on those.
So is this currently showing existing, correct?
Yes. It's existing with the ability to draw in suggested areas so that we can.
The existing comp plan designations or existing zoning?
Zoning. We started with zoning as a baseline, and then hopefully we can fine tune it to move forward. Yes.
Do you have an overlay map of what's currently there, or this is all new?
No, this is all current.
Do you have an overlay map of what is currently in use?
That's what this map is.
Okay,
So
so those
it had-
pads are already developed?
Yes, it has a current overview, and then it has another layer so that you can draw in a boundary of where you're proposing to grow or proposing to change, or even a new subdivision, for instance.
May I ask you, is this available to the public?
This one is not.
And for us on the board or on the committee, are we going to have access to this at some point?
I would imagine so, but that's a Jeremy question.
Okay, so this is a work in progress that we may be able to utilize, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And so, Mr. Chairman, if I could clarify that as well, and that is the purpose for this. We are going to have, the committee's going to have access to all of this information for the purposes of looking at putting together the growth element, putting together the land use map for the comprehensive plan to really determine. We have a lot of historical data that's put into this, that's put into these maps here that show the growth that's happened in specific areas over the last 10 years or over the last 20 years, for us to really be able to take a look at these areas and go, these are areas that are really growing. This is where we need to look at infrastructure, transportation. This is where we maybe want to look at making these areas commercially zoned in the future. This is what's going to help us kind of put that information into a plan for the future, into our comprehensive plan. So for a good example that we've been talking about in other areas too is maybe the Cordes Lakes area. And this is just an example, but looking at the Cordes Lakes area, that's typically zoned about RCU 2A, which is kind of our baseline zoning for the county. Well, we've seen a lot of commercial growth along that I-17 corridor right there. You know, that might make sense for us, you know, as we look at this information, it'll make sense for us maybe to have that area commercially zoned to make it easier for and more attractive for commercial developments to happen along that I-17 corridor. So that's kind of that basic example of why this information is important and what we're going to be looking at as we move into the growth element and the land use element. So I just wanted, and I appreciate so much GIS coming out to give us this information and to show us you know, what information we actually have at our fingertips right now, because you know, this is going to be a valuable tool for us moving forward here. So we do have a lot of information at our fingertips, and thank you again, GIS, for doing that. And this is, I think those were the points that I really wanted to cover as far as that goes. But we also have a lot of other information. The surveys that Brandon was talking about, we've had out for quite a number of months, of course, and that provides. They've pulled that information into almost map form as well, because we can pare down that information by supervisor district, by community, by you know, areas, so that we can see what's important to the people in those areas too. So, and I think, Jessica, you've got a presentation I think you were going to kind of cover on that, or
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't have the one I did to the supervisors, but it's the other one that it's very similar. So,
Okay, yeah,
by
great.
district. So we'll
So,
pull that up.
so she can kind of get into some of that information as well, but you know, I'll turn it back over to Brandon. But that's really why we have this information available right now.
Sure, and actually that's a great segue for the next area that we're going to dive into, the growth area plan, next steps. So thank you for those comments. And
Kevin,
Brandon,
can I ask another question real
Yes,
quick
Connie.
before we move on?
please.
So going back to that, just elaborating on my question before, when you were on the original map where it had all those little planned area development icons, is there a path that if somebody were to click on a pad that you had listed on that, can you drill down into that and find out who's there, what's there? The reason I'm asking, hypothetically, let's say Circle K were to come into the area. Would you help them identify a suitable lot, or how would they be able to use that map, or somebody else that was interested in bringing another business into the area? Because, you know, there's a lot of studies that go on for locations. Does that have the capabilities of that?
So that is going to be available to, you know, commercial developments, proposed commercial applications in the future. They have some limited access right now on our GIS website. But moving forward, yes, they'll be able to take a look at our land use plan, our growth element, and go, yeah, these are the areas that we're identifying that would be good for Circle K's or good for Family Dollar stores or whatever, you know. So that's where that tool is going to be really valuable for them.
So in the process of something like that, when you said earlier, the county might look at changing, you know, an area to commercial use. Would that be prompted by the user, or would you actually prompt that ahead of time? For example, would you change the zoning before a business approached you?
Hey, Jeremy, I can take that question.
Oh, Kazi's on.
Oh,
Sure, I'll let Kazi answer it.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and respected members of the committee. My name is Kazi Haq. I'm the current planning manager and land use specialist. I just wanted to touch base with you guys to let you know that typically you are in the right place right now to discuss those future rezoning. And typically it happens when you take care of the comprehensive plan first, because this is the overall picture that guides and gives us a policy to move forward for rezoning those areas. So this particular exercise we are involved right now with the growth area is also an area that kind of focuses on those particular area of interest that you as a committee might consider it an important place for growth and development to occur. You may also consider places that you don't want growth to happen, areas like riparian corridor, areas where there's no water, area where there's no public services like fire and police, you know, those put constraint on the county. So those are the areas that we are trying to focus as far as the growth area element goes. You want to consider transportation corridors. But to answer your question, we will rezone it once it is compatible with the land use map of the comprehensive plan that you are going to create. Right now, if we do it, then it becomes a little bit arbitrary because, you know, it may not be consistent with the existing comprehensive plan.
So just to follow up on that too, to answer your question, Connie, yeah, we would take a look at those areas once we have that land use plan, that land use map in place. We could take a look at those areas and go, yes, this area is, you know, should be potentially rezoned. So we would do some proactive rezonings in some areas, and they would be kind of limited areas, but they would cover a fairly broad geography as well. We would do that on a limited basis, but for those larger areas in the Cordes Lakes area, another area might be just to, you know, kind of on the Verde side there on the Cornville Page Springs Road area, where we're seeing a lot of vineyards and you know, wineries out there, and we want to maybe encourage the growth of those, or encourage those wineries to be in that area, just because of its, you know, its suitability for it. So we could look at doing some proactive rezonings in those types of areas.
Well, the only reason I was asking, I was wondering if this GIS mapping could be used as a tool for a potential business coming into the area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
I had a couple of questions. This is John Black.
Go ahead, John.
Okay. First of all, I was wondering, are we planning to create on the GIS system an overlay that would show the land use classifications? We come up with this list of classifications. We talked about it here in the committee. I'm just wondering, it would be very useful if we could have an overlay put in there so we can see what category each of these properties are. Is that in the plans?
Kazi, I'll defer that to you, but I believe yeah, there he is.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Committee Member Black, we do have that land use classification, you know, designation identified. Jessica and our former director worked on those, and of course Brandon from GIS was very helpful and instrumental in creating those. You know, the one you were talking over. We will do that, but that will be part of the land use element. We are going to concentrate that later on because it's a huge area we are talking about. But we are right, you are right, we'll be doing that. But right now we are focusing just for growth area, and then we'll move to land use pretty soon.
I had another question. I do enjoy using the GIS system, and I've been working with our committee in our community developing maps of the various neighborhoods within and so forth. It's been very useful for that purpose. Sometimes I will come up with questions that I don't have an answer to. Is there some way that the public can contact the GIS people to find out what's available or how to do things on the system?
Yeah, here's our contact information page. So you can call us or you can email us, and we will take care of that with you.
Okay. What is the criteria for deciding what is made available to the public and what is not?
I guess I can answer that question as well as anybody else right now. It's going to have to go through the committee first. We're going to have to make a determination what we consider to be valid information, correct information, usable information, and then we will assist staff in determining how they're going to present it online. That's my best answer as chair of the committee.
Yeah,
one of
I
the-
just wanted to echo that it's important in this part of the process for a project like this to be careful on what gets put out there, especially with access to GIS, because you don't want maps created that have not been approved and have like a county seal or any kind of Yavapai County stuff on there, and it being circulated as approved or what is going to go forward. So it's very helpful to have, the committee should work on it, but when they're deciding, what land uses, and because I can tell you right now, as soon as a map goes out and one person does not like what's on it, you're going to have a bunch of people coming at you, and it's very hard to explain to them that this is, and especially if it changes after that fact. I know people like you're saying about mentioning developers using it to help them figure stuff out. You would prefer that they have their own maps with their own logos on it versus the counties at this stage, and until it gets to a certain point where we are going to the public and doing like the growth area maps we were talking about, taking to the public and showing them those to notice that these are, authorized and approved, and we stand behind these, and there's reasoning behind these land uses, and things like that. So that's all.
Thanks, Jessica. John, do you have any other questions?
The survey data that we've collected so far, we have an address for each of the survey takers. And is there some way that we can create a map that would represent the survey responses that we've got, especially those that would be important for land use planning?
Yes, we can definitely generate maps, and I believe that most of them have already been created. They're just not in this dashboard.
Yes.
And how would I get access to them, for example?
I would say talk to the committee and we'll get you access to it.
Yeah, that might be something that if it's available by the next meeting, CPAC meeting, perhaps that can be a presentation that we go through. We can discuss what's there and once again determine what we want to continue to use and how we want to use it.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think that's well advised. Let's maybe make that an important item on our next agenda, if you could.
Thank you, Supervisor Michaels. Welcome to the meeting. I hope you're feeling better.
Trying to get there, absolutely. Thank you for your good wishes.
Mr. Chairman, we'll make those available at the next meeting.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. Good. So moving right along, staff, do you have a briefing on the growth area plan?
Yeah, Mr.
Where did you
Chairman,
provide
again,
us?
this is Kelsey Hawk. I just wanted to mention to you that, just kind of going back to what the GIS presentation was, we will try to have more GIS presentation for your meeting next week, next time. We'll also use GIS as a good tool, useful tool to help us formulate and decide on our growth area plan. So I am looking for some idea from you how GIS can help you decide where you want to see the growth area happen. And that goes to everyone, Mr. John Black, if you and any of your committee members would like to contribute and need something special, we'll be glad to provide that GIS format. But I think you need to concentrate on working on a growth area map right now. And then we can
You say
work on the
that
policy.
before we actually begin developing the plan, work on the map. Is that correct?
Yes, I think, see, what map will do is the map will give you the things for the policy, your goals and objectives. Those come in. We have done some basic draft that you have a copy right now. But what we like to do is create those maps that will inform us and direct us to the right policy objectives. Right now, we don't have any policies. We don't have any objective created. What we have is from the old one that was done in 2012. We like you all to come up with some fresh new ideas, new policy, because time has changed in the last 10 years.
Okay, I agree that there are a lot of improvements that are required in the old plan. What I was hoping for was an outline that we could kind of kick around this morning, perhaps determine how we want the growth area plan to develop. Jessica, do you have anything?
So it's kind of weird with a growth area plan versus a land use element. So the land use element, you kind of have you outline the categories and you have all that kind of stuff in there and you kind of create the map from there. The growth area element is really driven by the map. And so the map has to, I mean, we can do something, but an outline, but it's really difficult because the policies and the subsections and the character areas or the areas are actually defined by the map. It's very specific. So when we create policies and objectives, it's going to be driven by the map first. So I know I know we had talked about breaking it up to the supervisor districts. You know, each kind of looking at their own area and seeing which areas they want to focus on. Again, with the survey results, we'll find out where a lot of those comments are. Some of them, you know, there was a lot of results. Some of them, there's only 2 results from a district. So we need to find out where they were located at. But for this element, it goes backwards. The map creates the policies where every other element, the text can go first. It's a little weird on this one, I feel. So we need to get some kind of direction. So I think what Kazi's asking is, are there specific areas that, because I know the staff is going to go to the supervisors as well and kind of the areas, but is there any specific areas that you guys feel off the top of your head that you know this is an area we want to focus and look at that boundary? You don't have to set boundaries, but you know, if there's an intersections or jurisdictional, like next to somewhere, I don't know how to explain it, but if there's anything that strikes you as an area you automatically know, or an area, like he mentioned, you don't want growth in, that you're seeing people kind of infiltrating into, and you're seeing a type of growth that you don't want. I know in some rural areas, they start seeing the big guys coming and taking over the rural community feel. Those kind of areas we would need to know about to prevent that into the text.
And so, Mr. Chairman, also, so this is really the very high level discussion starting this process right now. And so it really is just kind of an open-ended question to the committee at this point of, you know, what are the areas in the county that you see that are really exploding, are really changing, are really growing, that may benefit from, you know, additional infrastructure, that may need additional growth, that may need changes along the way or have changed over the last 10 years. It's a very, very broad, open-ended question. But what we're going to start doing is taking those responses from you at this point, and we're going to start putting those on a map. And so we'll have that map put together for you, and it'll be an ongoing iterative process that we start looking at these areas in the county, and that will start to develop our map. That will start to develop our growth area map.
Okay, fine.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, so I understand that staff at this point is looking for guidance as far as how to develop the growth area plan.
Yes.
Which areas to focus on. That's fine. So
I had GIS pull up their lot splits again. So this is kind of a hotspot map. This is like if where we would kind of start at. Just trying to see, like, if you agree with some of these areas, if you know, this is a good place if the committee's kind of not unsure of what areas. This is a map of from 2018 to 20 current that they showed the lot splits and the growth happening. Are there kind of comments on this, agreements, disagreements, anything?
Well, I think at this point in time, looking at that map, I'd like to start over at the Verde. First of all, I heard somebody say, Mr. Chairman, sounded like they were.
I think that was Mary.
Mary, okay. So we'll start with Mary first and hear what Mary has to say. And then what I think we probably want to do is begin over in the Verde and just have everybody do a shout out as far as particular areas that you would like to see more focus placed on for our discussion at the next meeting. So Connie, we'll come to you as soon as we do Mary Chiquin. Mary, go ahead.
Okay. Personally, I think we need to be able to see the maps and have the information before we start making recommendations. As a committee, we're responsible for the entire county. This is the map that's up is great, but that detailed map that Brandon was showing us, I think we all need to look at it, we need to study it, we need to see how the county is transforming and look at some of those areas before we can make a recommendation on specifics as to how the committee's moving forward. I mean, right now, I would be making a recommendation without statistics and information, which I don't think is a good process.
Follow up on that. That we talked about how this is kind of a map-driven process. I would like to see the opportunity made for the public to have comments. The GIS system is great because you can zoom in, zoom out, move around. So an individual resident in a community, maybe in the Verde Valley or something, could zoom in on their area and see what areas, for example, are maybe candidates for proactive rezoning, or what the current thinking is, and they can express. It's kind of hard to really comment until you see a map and say, here's the proposal. To me, the GIS system, because it has a public facing, would provide a means for the public to provide input. And again, that involves implementing something on the GIS system for that purpose. But given that this is all map driven, I think we not only have the need to see maps, but we have the need to be able to zoom in and see details on specific areas. And that says GIS all over it.
Okay, thank you. Connie, you had a comment also that you.
I just wanted to ask GIS, or maybe staff, if you have a record of this, is there a possibility, it's not going to take forever, yes, it probably will, to put on a map? I know some jurisdictions will, for cases that are coming up, commission and supervisor districts, pinpoint where all the last cases have been on the map. And then better also see where you're, because I know it's difficult to see everything like transitioning. It's a hard documentation. You have to go into each case. But just since, however many years that you can take it back to where you're seeing the activity, where you're seeing the rezonings. I know this is minor land. This is just minor land divisions. Like where you're seeing the cases that are being asked for over and over and over. And it should show you where those growth areas are.
That's my comment exactly. Isn't this self-evident by these maps? When you see all the growth, it's obviously Prescott Valley and Prescott. I don't see a Sedona one here. But if we're concentrating on what we already know, where the growth is going, my only concern would be when a lot of the developers or, the people come in for this rezoning map and they refer to this, and it's, again, self-evident. We know where all the growth is. Prescott Valley, we can see it with our eyes. It's here on this map. What I would be concerned with is where the county dollars go, because a lot of these small areas, like when Harry and I visited Yarnell, they had some needs that the county needed to take care of in terms of roads and roundabout possibly there, or a couple stop signs. These high growth areas can't hog all the money, if you will. We need to be able to be cognizant about the needs in some of these smaller areas. So if you look at these maps and we start to direct all of our attention to the obviously growth areas that are growing at an exponentially bigger rate, I think we just have to be aware that some of these smaller communities that either don't want the growth or they're not getting the growth, that they get a fair shake on some of the the monies that are going to be coming down the road. And also some of these, as I reflected back earlier, some of the commercial, they need a hospital in Yarnell. We obviously, the county needs to be aware of the zoning for something like that, or a fire station, but directing all of our attention in the high growth area that's already self-evident, do we need to do that? I'm just questioning it. It's there already. We know it's there. It's market driven. So we have, she talks about the cases. I think we do need to know that, because there are some developments that I know they're not going forward now. Let's take, I think it was the Yavapai Ranch was one of them. I don't know what the community wanted with that, but I heard through the grapevine that it wasn't really well welcomed into the area. So where do we play a part in that when we start to look at some of the cases? Do we react to the cases as a committee?
So I feel that, when you're looking at growth areas, you're not looking only just at what was approved. So even if a case is denied, if it got heavy opposition and was denied, there is still heavy interest in that area. So it's going to grow. It's just a matter of the committee. So we kind of create an idea of, okay, this area, pre-apps, there's just going to be way too many and it's harder to track. But there are certain areas that just keep coming back for pre-apps. People are super interested in, there's interest in it. And so those areas are going to grow. Now, when we do the growth areas, and we decide, like, if we say north, whatever area is on the growth area map, that's when we look at what the neighbors said. If something was denied and they say we didn't want this, then we can direct those growth areas to say this area prefers to be something, this kind of more lower intensity, or maybe they want more industrial, more work stuff. But the growth areas are more like just setting the boundaries, the important part at this point, the general boundaries, so we know what areas are coming to prepare for it. And it also helps the infrastructure, the CIP program, transportation utilities understand what's the 10-year plan, what kind of density, intensity of roadways. That's what we need to know at this point. So any kind of information we have of what developers, landowners, state land, anybody, like state land, if state land is looking at auctioning off pieces or they're even thinking about it, that's good to know, because that's going to be quickly, those things get eaten up really fast. So we're not trying to directly plan what they're going to be. We just want to know what area just keeps coming up again and again. I mean, in other jurisdictions I've worked on, you see the same project come up for 5-6 years. It doesn't get built on, but eventually it's going to, because it obviously has a good location, good access, good utilities, and that's just where it's naturally going to occur. But you also want to hit on the areas, for instance, in some jurisdictions, they were focusing on building employment, but nothing's happening there, and that's where you create your incentive zones. And if you want some more areas, like you said, a hospital, if you want to create a hub for activity, you can put those on there and put that as a goal for that area. Doesn't mean it's going to happen quickly, but you can at least start focusing direction into those smaller areas to grow it. Kind of doesn't really answer any questions, but that's what it's all over the place with growth areas. Like, this is exactly what I call God planning. When people ask me, I was like, God planning is super fun. No one will know if you're wrong for 30 years, but it is a very, very high level, and that's what you're looking at, is the ultimate what's going to happen. The land use plan map growth area map may not happen in the next 10 years. Whereas the land use plan is a 10-year plan. It's supposed to be 10-year, maybe sometimes a little further out. But the growth area is what starts the transition for the next 10, 20, 30 years. And it just kind of goes from there.
Okay, this is going to be a question. Finish up on mine. So where do we, and maybe I'm thinking about this too much, but let's just say we have an area, a rural town, and we here in this committee, are we clearing the path for development in a community that doesn't really want development by concentrating, or that's probably not the right word, changing or giving the go-ahead that is an area that we would consider changing by establishing an area for a potential growth when it's not wanted? So do we just ignore that and go on what the applications have been from the people that are trying to apply, but they're being turned down over and over again? Are we clearing the path for that in some way?
I don't think so. I think it's because it's a tentative, it's a draft. And and like we've mentioned in the past meetings, we're going to go back out to these areas and these communities with these maps and sit in front of them. When we have something, it's very difficult, as you've seen with visioning and everything else, it's very difficult to get a whole bunch of people around a table and a map and just draw. They need something to start from. And that's all we're asking for at this point, is something to start from, so that we can go out to the supervisors and then take it to the public and to those meetings so we can get their feedback. And if that means removing pieces and revising the lines, that's exactly what we'll do. Nothing is finite by simply putting it out there as this is our draft. I actually just finished the town of Snowflakes, and they actually amended their land use map at the final council hearing. So it was not, even up until completely adoption, anything can change. And then in the code, in the plan, it also has an amendment section, which allows amendments at any time. So by doing this, we're just trying to get, as Jeremy mentioned, the high level, where can we start? And then we can always add other growth areas. We can always remove growth areas if that area says we don't want anything. If there's an area that feels they weren't included and all of a sudden, kind of was off our radar, they can obviously contact the county and say, hey, we actually do want development here. Can you put us on that and make an area for us? So it's just, right now, we're kind of throwing stuff at, we see this, and it's a really big area, because growth areas you don't want to be too large, because then it gets really difficult to manage the language of the policy inside it, of how you want it to grow. If you want it to be, keep it more rural, if it's too large, that's too big of an area, and you're going to kill then the areas that do need the commercial parts of it, or along the transit lines. So it's trying to bring it back to not a small, but I mean much smaller than that. But so I mean, I think at this point it might be helpful to see the cases, what keeps coming up, and separate this information by district so that it's on a smaller map and we can kind of look at that. And then kind of get your guys' input. And that's why you guys are here from your different districts, because you are the experts in those areas. And to get, what do you agree with this? Do you think this should be expanded, deleted? You know, and that's what we're really asking is, and it does, this map, the overall map will be cut into pieces because it is too large to view in one. It's too far out. I mean, we want it far out, but not that far out. So that's unmanageable. And GIS will help us with that and drill it down.
Thanks, Jessica. Real quick, Director Dye, do you have any comments that you'd like to make before I have a few comments?
Yeah, actually, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to touch on a couple of the statements that were made. Yeah, we absolutely need more data, and that's exactly what we're moving toward here. This is going to be an ongoing process that we're going to focus on over the next few months. And so we are going to pull that data in and make that available to everyone here on the committee so that they will be able to make some informed decisions. And with regard to that, I think the map that's on the screen right now is a very good place to start, in my humble opinion, because that does show kind of the history of where we're at and where are the hot spots here in the county right now. So we can start to build our own map based on what we've got right here. And as we move forward and beginning with next month, we are going to have some maps available to everyone, along with some additional data that that we can start to really do the deep dive into. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I have three things I'd like to talk about. First of all, I'm wondering if this information doesn't seem very sensitive, maybe not totally refined, but I wonder if it's clear enough to provide to the public. Just that map, and perhaps also 5 individual maps that show up by district, the current growth areas. That's number one. Number two, I'm wondering if as much of this information can be made available to this committee as soon as possible, perhaps emails of links or actual graphs or maps or whatever, so we can have as much information as possible when we come to our next meeting, because I think at the next meeting we're going to be making some hard decisions as opposed to just discussion. And the third thing is that I was a little curious about. Well, let's see. Actually, that pretty much covers my interests. I think today the idea is for us to identify our next steps in the growth area plan. And it sounds to me like the first step is to get as much information to the committee as possible for the next meeting. Also to provide some public information so we can receive public input. And then after that, I'd like to maybe today just hash out any other steps that people think need to be taken between now and the next meeting so we can make ourselves as productive as possible in March. So that said.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I think we've got some pretty clear direction right now for the next meeting and moving forward. Thank you, sir.
Well, that was easy. We don't really have a whole lot more today except a call to the public and a roundtable for committee members and upcoming items of interest for the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee. So why don't we start with number one, upcoming items of interest for the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee.
And just a quick update, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Kazi.
Go ahead, Kazi. I'm sorry.
Okay, now I just wanted to introduce you. We have hired an interim senior planner. You remember Leah Brock, our senior planner, left the county and she's working somewhere else. So we have got a contract with Mr. John Frock. He came from City of Glendale. He used to be the former Director of Development Service Department. He's joined us this week. So we are very glad to have him. He'll be playing an important role with our comprehensive plan and give Jeremy the much relief he needs as he's, getting busy with other schedules. So Mr. John Frock is also online right now. He's watching this meeting, and I'm hoping that one of these days we'll be able to meet in person and introduce you to you in person. I also wanted to talk to you briefly about the transportation element in our comprehensive plan. We're making really good progress on that. So I would hope that someday, Chairman, if it's okay with you, maybe if not in the next meeting, the following meeting, I'd like that team to come and give a brief presentation and introduction to the committee.
That sounds good to me. I'm all for it. In fact, but at the next meeting, I think we're going to complete the growth area plan business first and
Yes,
make
Mr.
sure that
Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just also wanted to kind of really emphasize, public information and public, information dissemination. We would love to do that. We'll put it up on our webpage. But really, as Jessica mentioned, that, it's such a large, vast people, and we have very diverse communities, diverse opinion. What we are trying to find out from you as the respective members of each district is to gather some of this information. Let's put it on the paper and let's create some kind of a graphics. And then the GIS and staff will work together to refine it. And nothing is set in stone, but at least it'll give us the momentum to move forward, to create a map. And then, for example, I was in a town hall in Congress with Supervisor Oberg, and I heard people say, hey, we don't want this over here, we don't want this over here. However, we need a hospital. And so I think one of the committee members also pointed out, how do we go about doing all those things that the people want? And this is where, you as an architect of the comprehensive plan are required to do some work here. I know opening up to the public is great, but we have 250,000 people over here. It'll take us that many years to finish this job. Thank you.
Point well taken. Thank you, Kaz. Let's see. Do we have any other discussion on the growth area plan before I move on? I want to make sure that everybody has had an opportunity to say everything they want on this subject for now. Jessica, you look like you have something else to add.
I just want to comment with Kazi and Jeremy, make sure. Is the goal, I know you said we're clear direction, just verifying clear direction, that at the next next meeting, we will be drawing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we will be drawing. We're going to provide, as I heard the direction, we're going to be providing some data maps and charts well in advance of the next meeting for the committee to start researching and working on. And we're going to provide some public maps, make those available on our CPAC site, and then we are going to come prepared next month to start drawing out.
So because of that, that is, I just want to remind the members that is homework. So while they'll provide that stuff, if you can look at it, but also in your mind, if you can maybe print some of those out and come with stuff so that we can get through that and have a clear, direction from all the members. And then it would be, and that way we can also hopefully hit the transportation element and give a little, even just like a few minutes of their time to hear that, so we can keep this momentum.
Good. I wasn't trying to scare away the transportation element. I just want to make sure we proceed in an orderly fashion. Supervisor Oberg, you have something to say?
Yeah, I guess I have a couple of questions. Jessica talked about maybe imposing on the GIS map, going back and showing, if I understood you correctly, the application history on some of the areas in our districts, and how have they grown, if they've been denied. People said they didn't want to have it, just like right now I've got a situation, or had one down in Congress, where somebody wanted to come in and put in a PAD of 64 home sites. Basically, 124 people from the community came in and said they don't want it, they don't want to change the zoning. I didn't have one person that was for it, I had 124 against it. So of course, we went ahead and denied it. So I guess what you're saying is, this is kind of the history you need to give us. What I'm asking for is, what time period? Are we just going to go back a year? Are we going to go back to the end of the last comprehensive plan, the last 10 years, and say, okay, this is what's happened in the last 10 years? I don't know. I'm asking what kind of information are we going to get, and how far back are you going to go?
I don't have a good answer to give you for that right now. Our data has changed. The way we capture our data has changed over the last few years. So I know that we can go back and give accurate information for at least the last 3 years. I know we had some discussions previously with our previous permitting system that may or may not be available, and I'm going to have to do some research to find out for sure.
Well, again, I think 3 years, we probably had a lot of growth in the last 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of applications that either got denied or approved. So probably the last 3 years is fine. I'm just trying to get an idea of what time period we're talking about. So
we can definitely get you some good information.
When somebody says, we're going to go to the supervisor and see what areas they want to grow, again, I don't think I can do that yet until I, talk to the people in the various communities I have.
Yeah.
To me, maybe this is, I don't know whether we should talk about it now or in the round table, but, we started out saying early on we wanted to get the vision statements from all the communities. Now it sounds like we really can't do that until we have this land use plan, we have some ideas of, potential growth, how we're growing. So maybe really after we sit down with the communities with these maps and find out what they want to do, then that's when it's going to be the right time to actually do the vision statement for the community that could be included in the comprehensive plan.
Mr. Chairman, if I could
Am I
weigh
right on
in.
that or wrong?
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Donna Michaels here. So I really hear what Harry is saying and agree. I think there will be a time when they'll diverge and we'll have parallel tracks running simultaneously. I don't think we have that yet. And I do think it makes a good deal of sense to, with a map, be able to go out and, Kazi, I hear your warning. We don't want to take the next 3 lifetimes in that process. On the other hand, I think getting these maps out and having some input about, and Jeremy, I don't know if it's possible, but even percentages, we've had X percentage of growth in Prescott Valley. We've had a 3% loss of population, we know that, in Sedona. I think all that's very useful as we look at where are, particularly when you think of basic human services like hospitals, where the need is going to be for us to be driving, encouraging, promoting, however we want to do it, a particular development in a certain area. So that's my comment, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
And thank you very much.
Kazi,
Do I have any other comments on the growth area
Just
plan?
with regards to the history back, I think if you can, try to get to 2019, pre-COVID. But I wouldn't go further back than that because I'm sure you've all seen the development everything has drastically changed since COVID. It's changed manufacturing, commercial, residential, everything. So where you might have had projects before COVID, in some areas, the type of project and where they're at has significantly changed, and I think almost been permanently impacted going forward for the next many years. So I don't think you need to go further back than that, but if you can get, middle of 2019, and stuff like that, then you'll see what's going, and especially there's been so much development going on recently. I mean, every jurisdiction, every planner is swamped. So I can't get my head above water, it seems, but I think you've got a lot of information. So I think there's gonna be plenty for you.
And we do, Mr. Chairman. I'm confident with the data that we've got for the last 3 years.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I also want to point out something, if I may. I think the point Supervisor Oberg and Supervisor Michaels made are very valid and very important. To that effect, I would like to remind you that we are not only talking about minor land divisions that happen, the lot split that's happening everywhere is proliferated so fast. We just cannot give you how many of them are happening everywhere. But what happens is that you have to look at the, unintended consequences. What happens when you are building so many homes on septic systems and dirt road, and then those things affects our riparian corridor and watersheds and stuff like that without having a proper waste system and all that. But I also wanted to point out to you that over the years, Yavapai County has continued to allow use permits. Generally speaking, a use permit is only allowed when the zoning cannot be changed. And the zoning cannot be changed because these are 10-acre parcel, 20-acre parcel, instead of making the change. So you could be basically having a commercial business in the middle of a residential community or somewhere where it is not suitable. And we see people coming across, coming in opposition on that. So we need to look at those maps and give you the data which we can gather together and get you that information, talking about use permits, talking about lot splits, and give you the information for last 3 years so you could make informed decision.
Thank you, Kazi. Supervisor Oberg, you have something?
Yeah, I just had a couple more things to say. It's obvious, and I agree with Jessica. I think, growth is going to continue. Just as with this recent example in Congress, obviously where this development was going to go, two things. They didn't want it there, number one. Number two, they didn't want to see zoning change. But we do know that Congress is growing. There's a lot of people coming in there wanting to establish little mini ranches, and they just didn't want them as small as what this guy wanted to do. So I agree with Jessica, growth is going to happen. We're going to continue to grow. And every community is going to grow. I mean, we've got that down in Kirkland with the Rigger ranches down there, 1, 2, 3, and 4. A lot of sold property. We're going to see what happens in the future if they want to, maybe sell off some of the property and how much that's going to grow. So obviously, we know we're going to grow. I think we need to get with the communities and find out how they want to grow and where they want to grow. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else on the growth area plan? Going once, going twice. Okay, good. Let's move on then. We sort of got a preview on the upcoming items of interest for the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee, and that is that the transportation element is going to be presented to us in March, as I understand, along with finishing up what we can right now with the growth area plan. Do we have anything else that we're looking forward to on the upcoming items of interest?
Well, Mr. Chairman, just a couple of other quick things too. Last week, I released through our county PIO a press release just on the comprehensive plan, just a basic overview and how people can get involved. So that went out to all of the Prescott side and Verde side media. So that's out there. I just wanted to let everybody know about that. And then in the month of February and March, I'll be doing some community meetings in the District 2 area, Supervisor Gregory's district. I'll be talking about the comprehensive plan at those meetings. And that's all I have, sir.
Wonderful. Good, thank you very much. Okay, so then moving on to roundtable for committee members for any topics included on the agenda. Why don't we start with Committee Member Jim Peterson and Secretary Peterson and move around the table from there, please.
You caught me off guard. Would you repeat that, please?
Sure. This is our roundtable for committee members for any topics not included on the agenda. So if there's anything on your mind, fire away.
I have nothing on my mind, thank you.
Okay. Jeremy, do you have anything you'd like to throw in? Sandra?
I would just like to compliment Jeremy on the meetings that you're having in Region 2, I think, and the BOS 2, I'm sorry, that you'll get public input. But I personally am concerned that we keep talking about getting the public involved when we really don't even know ourselves where we are, because we don't agree. So the minute you bring the public in there, it's going to just draw it out forever. Can't we give it to the public after we sort of agree on everything?
Well, that would make things easier, but personally, I think the earlier public input we get, the better. And it's my job as committee chairman to herd all those cats and, keep things moving along, and I'll do the best I can, but I like public input. But that's, I understand your concerns. I've seen how mired we can get in
Yes,
details.
absolutely.
But I think this is one detail that we don't want to forego. Supervisor Hoberg, do you have anything that?
Yes, I got a couple items. First of all, I think it would be helpful every time we have one of these meetings to have a slide or whatever that shows where we are in the plan right now in developing this. Are we online on time? Or are we behind? I'm not sure where we are right now. It seems to me like we're kind of struggling. We spent a lot more time on this than I thought we would be. I thought we'd be moving on to some other things. So I just want to know where we are, because I know there's some concern if we're going to be able to finish by October. The other thing, of course, is, we started out having a lot of surveys, and we questioned, the comments in the surveys and, were they really going to get the answers we were looking for to try and help move forward? Where are we in that process right now? It seemed like we were, looking at various surveys, approving the content of the surveys. Are we still doing that? Or are we totally out of that now? It seems to me that there's some areas that we still need to develop. I guess I'm also wondering, I think we had some initial survey that came out. I had 60, 70 questions on it very early. And then later on, we started to focus those surveys more on the various elements, being very elements specific, which I thought was good. I think that we need to do that, because I think the first one was just, too complex, because it covered too many subjects, and I think people might have got confused when they're answering this survey question up here if it really was relevant to this one down here. So I think, going to the very specific element surveys was a good idea. Where are we at on that right now? Have we finished that survey process? Have we got all the input? I know you've indicated in the past you'll take input all the way up until, I guess, the time that we want to try and take this to the board. But have we got all the input that we think we're going to get on these surveys right now? Are there other surveys that still need to come out?
So, Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Oberg, yeah, so we are still putting out more surveys as we start moving into those elements that we're working on. So we're just now getting to release the transportation element. We've got survey questions for the water element that are going to be released and put on our website soon. So we're still in that process, and we're still collecting information as the public provides that and enters those surveys for us as well. So we do have. And we can provide an update on that as well. I think Jessica had a little brief presentation that she was going to provide earlier today, but we can certainly save that for next month, just to kind of give everybody an idea of what surveys have been responded to, what's on people's minds, and what's important to people. Just to touch on your other question as to where we're at in the process right now, just given where we ended up late last year, end of summer last year, we missed a couple of meetings. So we are moving through these pretty quickly, as expeditiously as possible. So the things that we covered initially, the energy element, the environmental element, we moved through those rather rapidly. We're slowing down right now on the really important topics of our land use, our growth area. That's where we're going to spend some time on. Transportation, we're going to spend some time on, and we've got a lot of research right now going on behind the scenes for the transportation element when the committee gets ready, so that we have that ready for the committee to really take a close look at when we get ready to present that to the committee. Same thing with the water element. We've got our hydrologist internally here that's working diligently on the water element for us as well. So we're going to have a lot of information to present to you when it's when we get ready to really tackle those elements. So we are moving along as quickly as we can, and we've got a lot of work that's taking place behind the scenes right now just to keep the committee moving forward and to keep us on schedule.
Okay, I guess the last thing is, I think when we go out to our communities with those maps and we start talking to them about that, I think that's when we also need to have all the results of the surveys. Mm-hmm. Because I think it'll be important to say, okay, when they start saying something on a map, we can say, well, this is what you said about transportation, this is what you said about growth, and if there's, if they don't correlate, we need to find out what's wrong. Hopefully they will. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Jessica, do you have anything else to add?
I'll work on those.
Okay.
I'll have those ready for you.
okay.
And I'll update them too from when I presented them to you, because as Jeremy mentioned, they're ongoing surveys. So as we're getting more participation, I need to update those.
And of course, we deeply appreciate everything that you produce for us. So thank you. Connie, do you have anything?
Yes, I'd like to echo support for exactly what Harry was saying. I think it's imperative that we as a community or a committee know community by community what the results of these surveys are. In general, I think if you read, 20 survey results, you'll be able to get the gist of what that community wants. I mean, I'm sure there'll be dissenters, but overall, we should be able to get an idea. I mean, a couple of the meetings I went to, there was absolutely no question what everybody in the audience wanted for their community. You can sit in any meeting for 15 minutes and figure that out. And I think it's important for all the committee members to know that as we move forward, and in particular, the growth area. That is very, very important, because again, we don't want to inadvertently pave the way for something that is not going to be cohesive in some of these communities, and we need to be very aware of that. So I'm echoing that. I think that we need to do that, and I think when you offer the surveys, I would think it'd be very helpful if we know, again, community by community, what the results of those surveys are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see staff vigorously writing, so I think that we're going to see some action on that. Supervisor Michaels, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just affirm what's been said. I think it's important that we as a committee know what our communities are saying. And I think a graph of that, a chart of that, a picture, an overlay of the percentage of the growth in a particular area and what the community is saying as its priorities. And I'd like to see it, and not only community by community, but what are each district look like? And, Jeremy, where do you and I need to go back out and get some more responses, survey answers? I know we've been working with Verde Village, and we got a pretty good response rate, but it may be time for us to go back out, and I imagine that others might be feeling that way too, to work with you. So you're not doing that solo. Of course, right now I'm a virtual girl, but I think it is time for us to begin to get a sense of who are we now as individual communities, but also as districts, and then countywide, so that we have a sense of where we can encourage or understand where growth is desired. So I'm not worried, Mr. Chairman, about the deadline, the timing. I think we'll meet it. It's not a hard deadline anyway, as we all should know. So not that we want it to be an endless process, of course, but I think having the quality of the responses back and understanding our communities and comparing the maps with those survey responses is going to be really powerful for the next 10 years for us. So I think slowing down here is the correct thing to do. This is the heart of the matter, and I support Jeremy's effort in that, and the staff as well. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see us slowing down. I see us just becoming more effective, hopefully. But we want to make sure we have as much information as possible as we move along. Mary, do you have anything you would like to add?
No, I don't, except to tell you, Mr. Chairman, that with the change of next month, I have a standing committee, so I will not be able to attend our committee meeting.
Okay, well, thanks for the heads up. We'll do the best we can without you, but of course you'll have an opportunity to review all the materials beforehand and provide any comments. I would strongly encourage everybody on the committee, after you receive all the information you're going to receive, any comments that you have that you can provide back to staff prior to the meeting would be very helpful. And that'll help us to really focus and aim this in exactly the direction we want to go in. John, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes. regarding the earlier comments about public input, I've been a proponent of more of that. And I realize that it's a messy process, that in some ways it may slow us down because we'll have to take more things into account. But I think it's a necessary process. I think the idea of us just doing the whole thing and then handing it to the public it's going to, I mean, suddenly we're going to have to retrench and, so forth. So to make it a little more specific, I wanted to make some comments on the Planning Yavapai 2032 website. I've asked for some changes on that, and I want to thank Jeremy and Kazi and the staff for the changes they have made. There's a couple things that still need to be dealt with. One of them, it says, please contact planningyavapai.gov for more information. And then it says, to learn how you can participate, please join our mailing list. There's no obvious way to join the mailing list there. I noticed up above, there is a tab called Get Involved. If you click on that, then it gives you an opportunity to join the mailing list. So I'd like to see a reference put to that tab so that when someone reads that, they'll know where to go. I want to acknowledge the fact that they have made some nice improvements as far as the surveys go. They're now putting Excel files up there, even though they haven't yet created a dashboard. That allows people to get access to all the data, including me, which I enjoy. The one problem that I really want to bring attention to is the fact that there's no way right now for the public, for any, or even me, to download the latest version of the energy element and the environmental element. We have 8 buttons on that website, one for each of the elements. We have 2 of them that have been completed. We've got a revision 2 that we approved, and yet no one can get access to that. Previously, they were put into the packets that were posted on the website, the other website, the meeting website, so people could download the packet, but all those packets have been taken off now. So, and the 2 buttons on the website that currently allow you to download give you the original version. They don't give you the updated version. So we need to update this website to allow people to download the version 2. And if we do that, we won't need to necessarily maintain the packets on the other website. But right now, both of them have been taken down. So just like to see that addressed. I would like to acknowledge the fact that they have posted the full vision statement now, so people can download that, and that's great. So that's about all I had.
Thank you, John. Any other comments before we move to call to the public? Going once, going twice. Okay, call to the public. Do we have any public that you're aware of that would like to speak to us? No comment sheets, no. Okay, very good. Well, geez, this is a tough decision I'm going to have to make, but I think the next thing I'm going to have to do is adjourn. So going once, going twice, we're adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending and participating in this important program.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You guys done?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, Tom.